remembering a person who all of you know in some way and who has shared his life with you. And so every emotion is sacred and welcome here. And having said that, I also believe that there are tissues in all of these to make sure. So this is how this will go. We will have this moment here in our sanctuary. We will pray, we'll have a reading and a listening of scripture, and we will have at the heart of the service the words of remembrances. And the family has generously put that together. It's in your program here. And then we will process out here this way, and we'll go over to our ash garden, where we will have a committal of the ashes. And you're all welcome to follow as we do that. And then we will come back in to a beautiful fellowship hall. And we have a repast, lovely food that welcomes you to also visit with each other, to look at the photographs that have been gathered, to give your condolences and your prayers to the family. So that's how we will go. We have one glitch in our program. The slide that was supposed to be shown was the slide that is on your bulletin, which is this lovely photo of Bill. And I just want you to know he is here in spirit with us. He's in our hearts. And his photograph is indeed on the bulletin cover. And I believe you might have extra bulletins you wish to take home with you. Let us begin. Jesus said, "So you have sorrow now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you." Our opening hymn is "Precious Lord, Take My Hand," and that's hymn number 628. And if you can rise in body, mind, or spirit as you are able, please do so.
first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. Brothers and sisters, strive eagerly for the greatest spiritual gifts, but I shall show you a still more excellent way. If I speak in human and angelic tongues, but do not have love, I'm a resounding gong or a clashing cymbal. And if I have the gift of prophecy and comprehend all mysteries and all knowledge, if I have all faith so as to move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away everything I own, and I hand my body over so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It is not jealous, it is not pompous. It is not inflated, it is not rude. It does not seek its own interest. It is not quick-tempered, it does not brood over injury. It does not rejoice over wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never fails. The word of the Lord.
Our second reading is from Timothy chapter 4, verses 6 through 8, and then 17 through 18, and that will be read by Tammy Mankin.
Good morning. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come. I have fought a good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day, not only to me, but also to all those who have loved his appearing. But the Lord stood by me and strengthened me, so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed, and all of the Gentiles might hear it so. So I was rescued for the lion's mouth. The Lord will rescue me from every evil deed and bring me safely into his heavenly kingdom. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen.
We have a number of people who would like to share a few words, and I'd like to invite Joanna before discussion music starts. Amazing Grace, which will be sung by Jerry Harris.
Good morning. This is a celebration of life, of Billy Bob's life. Now this might come as a little surprise to you, but we've called him Billy Bob for a long, long time. And my friend Linda, I've called Linders. So she probably doesn't want you to call her that, but so anyhow, we are celebrating Billy Bob's life that we've been friends forever. And Linda and I were born in Little Valley, New York, and we've known each other practically since we could open our eyes and been besties ever since. So this is for you, my darling, and this is also for you because you requested Amazing Grace. For Joanna. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Tis grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears It relieved how precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace, it will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amazing grace. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And now I would like to invite Joanna and Adam, Jack and Max, Taylor, and his daughter and family to come forward, and they will share their words with you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here today to talk about the amazing, truly good person my grandfather, Bill Pater, was. Ever since the beginning of my memories, I can't think of a time where my papa was not in my life. To me, he was someone who I could always go to for advice or just to talk. He was always in my corner. Whenever he would visit, he would always take me out to our local Denny's. This became a tradition of him and I, as we would always go out to breakfast joints whenever we were together. Him going out of his way to spend time with me was what made it the most memorable. I always remember he would hum the Beatles song, A Yellow Submarine, every time at breakfast. Another thing we bonded over was our love for the card game cribbage. We would always play for hours together having fun. Although he has passed, and I miss him terribly, I will still always value the time we got to spend together.
Morning, everybody. I'm Maxwell, Bill Pater's grandson. I'd like to take a minute or so to talk about the time Bill, my grandfather, spent with me and my family. From the moment I was born to the moment he passed, he was there for me. He was there to help take care of me when I was a baby. He was there to teach me when I was young, and he never stopped. And he was even there for me and my family till the end. He always had time for us, and we will always love him for it. No words can show how much I miss my grandfather, and although I wish he was here today, I know he's in a better place now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joanna, Bill's daughter. A little bit more to say than these guys, and I wanted to thank all of you for coming today to celebrate my dad's life and to never had to worry that he would be incredibly angry with me with any subject I brought up, maybe slightly upset with me, but it would always pass quickly. I truly felt that God blessed me with the best father in the entire world. When I was young, my dad came home from work and always read to me at night. As a scared child, every night he looked under the bed and in the closet twice, always making sure there were no monsters. He always made me feel safe my entire life. As a child, I also had terrible ear infections that left me in awful pain. He held me and rocked me and spent many a night in the emergency room with me, never leaving me alone until I was out of pain. Also, when puberty struck, I had abnormally bad cramps, and my dad would always manage to show up in the room with a heating pad and a caring face, and would lay down with me until I slept. My dad was one of the most nurturing people that I've ever met. My dad also coached any and every team I played on, whether it be softball or basketball. He also began a very long service to the Board of Education, much longer than he intended, actually, wanting to go on it just to make sure that the system was as best as it could be for my brother and I. And then he became a very beloved member of the system and remained on it for many years, like I said, much longer than he intended to. When I was in grade school, I started experiencing some difficulty in school, and my dad had me tested, and the end result of that was that I would do better in a boarding school, and that was that. There was no question. There was never, well, let's see if we can do this. Let's talk it over. For my dad, it was just, let's find the right school, and that was that. My dad made everything better. He sent me to the petty school from 8th grade to senior year of high school, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. He told me afterwards, probably some point in my 30s, or actually probably 20s, that I would understand one day when I had children, that when you love, when you feel love so incredible as the love you feel for your children, that you will do absolutely anything you can to make their life better. And if that be education, then you make it happen no matter how it happens. anything you need to do to teach your kids, and show your kids how loved they are, and to make sure that they are always well adjusted, and to make sure that they feel safe at all times. My dad's self-discipline lessons started very early. I believe when I was around 6, as we started working out on the Solaflex every night after dinner. My brother and my dad and I would go downstairs, and I remember these extremely fun times actually working out on the Solaflex after dinner. And many of you know my dad was a runner, and I began running with him at 7 years old. I was always so impressed and proud of my dad that when I ran with him, I learned to run early and fast, because when I ran with my dad, I felt like a superstar being with him. I ran until I was 27 years old, when my knees gave out on me and I couldn't possibly run anymore. My dad's advice on education was always in the back of my mind if I ever felt like dropping a class in college, and instead of doing that, which maybe in some cases I should have, I did just work harder, and with my dad always in the back of my mind. When I became a federal investigator in my mid-20s, it was probably one of the happiest times of my dad's life. Somewhat for himself, he actually asked me with seriousness if they could have a copy of my badge made for him. I actually asked him if he had lost his sanity. Whenever we were in traffic together, and he would get ticked off, which was often, he would grab my badge and scream out the window at the other driver that he was in the FBI, and that they had better watch out, that he was coming after them. And I would tell him he was crazy at the time, but now I have such fond, funny memories of those moments. My dad and I always shared a very unique sense of humor. And regarding family, that kicked in the moment I had my first son. I understood all the talks my dad had always had with me. Sorry, I lost my place. Now having such a fierce love for both of my sons. My father was there for both of my sons for most of their lives. He was such a silly, loving, educating, and adventurous, he added such an adventurous relationship with both of them. I'm so happy for the time that he was their papa. And I just wanted to share that I was gonna pass out from the pain, and it was gonna be terrible, and it was gonna be awful, and obviously it didn't hurt at all. Also, my dad and my Uncle Bob moved me every time I moved, and that was a lot. And they both feigned just complete, oh, you're moving again. And the two of them just, oh God, no movers, we'll do it, you know, it's fine. And moving day would show up, and the two of them would be there with giant smiles on their faces, coffees in hand, every tool known to mankind in their little toolboxes. And, you know, and I would have everything ready for them to go, and, you know, any sort of comfort for their moving truck. Oh, no, we're fine. And I think that the two of them just loved taking trips together, and I don't think
thank you very much for those memories and stories. Will Fred Schaefer, who's a longtime friend of Bill's, come forward?
Well, first I'd like to say, Jerry, thank you for that amazing grace. That was my father's favorite. Linda, Janet, Joanne, Hattie, my God's Bill and I were always together, and as many times as we met, Bill was always a true gentleman. He was a great friend. He was my best man. However, you wonder, how did we ever meet like that? We never went to the same church, the same neighborhood, never went to the same schools, but our parents were going to the same church. And that church was called Carmel, spelled with a K, German Evangelical Reformed Church in Southwest Philadelphia. And Bill and I were baptized, confirmed, and wed in that same church. And during our dad's, or both members of the consistory, which was the governing body of the church, they also had to belong to a committee, and they both belonged to the house committee. And they were responsible for the maintenance, painting, any repairs that had to be done, cleaning, cutting grass, and shoveling snow. But Bill and I didn't realize that when our dads were on that committee, we were on that committee. So we were reminded that this is stewardship. But as time goes on, Bill and Linda moved into a home into Holmdel, New Jersey, and started their own family, Joanna and Matt. Many years later, Linda wanted to retire. Linda and Bill wanted to retire. So they had a very nice home built on the water in Punta Gorda, Florida. How? Bill was in his glory. He was on the water, had a boat, fishing. Life was great. And on one trip that we made down to see him and visit him, Bill and I would cook steaks out on the lanai, and we'd have a few drinks. So Bill would come over to me this one time, put his arm around me and say, always remember, we got to be very close friends. Okay, well, here comes the drinks. But I said, okay, Bill, why do we have to become such very good close friends? He said, well, as he did, shake his head, we know too much about each other. And when I thought about it, yeah, well, that's true. So later on, I started to text and call Bill more often. I found out through Linda that he was not doing so well. So I thought I'd try and keep him up with current events, what was happening in our life. And I mentioned keeping up with the Eagles and the Phillies. And I said to him, sure, Matt's keeping you up. Oh, yeah, sure. But he had the channels all dialed in. He knew exactly what he was going to do. So, along with trying to keep him informed, my younger son, Mark, who played lacrosse most of his life, besides having a regular job, his mind said, yeah, I can keep going, but his body said, no, you're not. So he had to take up a hobby, and his hobby was sand sculpting. And after a few years, he became quite good at it. He entered some contests, and he made friends with a fellow called Matt Long, who lived up in Long Island. Matt Long always traveled around the country, around the world, doing all these various sand sculptures, because he was really good. So after Septembers come around, I do big sand sculpting for the tunnels to towers for charity work for the first responders. So, Mark was in his glory. Sure, okay. So I always send pictures to Mark how the progress went and told me the final rendition, what they came up with. And it was pretty big. So he really appreciated the fact I kept him up on that. But sometime in mid-October last year, Linda called to let us know that Bill was not doing too well. And he had a little mishap and he had to go to the ER. And sure enough, Bill had passed. Heavy heart. But taking our confirmation at the time, as he's going back to church again, I thought, the thing that got me in the confirmation was we had all these questions and Bill had to go through the same routine and answer in front of the congregation. Any question that they put to him, we had to answer. And what I thought was appropriate, especially now for Bill, the very first question in our confirmation was, what is thy only comfort, both in life and in death? And the answer was, and is now, that I, both in body and soul, am not my own, but belong to our faithful Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. God bless Bill and his family, and God bless this congregation.
Thank you very much for your moving words. I'd like to ask Art Markowitz, who's also a longtime friend of Bill and co-worker at Bella.
Good morning. I'm Arthur Markowitz, and I'm a friend of Bill's. I met Bill back in the early 1960s when we both worked at Bell Telephone Laboratories in Whippany. We worked in different buildings, but I had occasion to go to his office to use some equipment, and that's where we first met. From the moment we first talked, I was taken by Bill's friendliness, his smile, and his honest eyes. I had grown up in New York City, so I was not used to guys being friendly without an ulterior motive. The New Jersey friendliness was a bit disarming, but I quickly let my guard down and we struck up a friendship that has lasted more than 60 years. Our friendship lasted because for me, Bill never seemed to have a bad word to say about anybody, and he had a rare quality. He was never judgmental, and when he gave me advice, he always did it with a smile. He'd listen to me gripe about my problems and would just grin and shake his head in agreement and then give me a little uplifting advice, which usually turned out to be just what I needed at the time. He'd listen to me feeling sorry for myself and somehow getting me to feel that my problems really were not that bad at all and I'd get through it all okay. And when the shoe was on the other foot, I'd try to give him the same consoling words, and the friendship just worked. No one knows this, and to be honest, I didn't either until I started thinking about what to say today. I realized subconsciously I thought of Bill as the big brother I never had. Early in our friendship, he introduced me to Long Beach Island. He invited me to visit him in his family's rented house in Surf City. And it was there that I met his parents and his sister Janet. He taught me things that were foreign to me, the city boy, such as how to pick a good sirloin steak, how to light a charcoal grill, and how to cook the steak perfectly and add the finishing touch of Mrs. Paul's onion rings. At some point in the 60s, he and I and 2 other friends got along so well, we all decided to share a house in West Orange. It was there that Bill announced that we should all behave ourselves because he was going to bring a lady to the house to meet us. That's when we all met Linda. Since Bill was good about taking some kidding, a couple of the guys arranged for the precocious neighbor boy of 7 to run up to Bill and Linda and call Bill Daddy. It was good for a laugh, though, as I recall, Bill and Linda did not laugh. But Bill took it in stride, and he just calmly told Linda that he lived with a bunch of jokesters, and the crisis was averted. So Bill and Linda married and raised a family, and the rest of the guys did as well. Bill and I attended each other's wedding. We visited each other many times over the years, went to many Giants and Eagles football games, and followed each other's careers. My kids called him Uncle Bill, and his kids did likewise with me. One year, Bill and Linda decided to move to Florida. I was sad to see them leave New Jersey. I knew we wouldn't get to see each other much anymore. But they visited here, and I visited them in Florida, and we managed to keep in touch. Then the call came from Linda with the devastating news that my friend of 60 years had passed away. I can't tell you how much I miss him. He was an all-around great guy. I'm sure I'll never meet anyone, but that mischievous smile and friendliness, which were life-changing gifts that he gave to me. I've lost the best friend I ever had. All I can do is with great sadness say goodbye to my friend and remember the good times. I am so sorry for Linda, Matt, Joanna, their children, and their entire extended family. There is still much joy and sadness yet to experience, and there will be moments in our lives, we won't know when it will happen, but it will, when we see Bill's smiling face and remember how we were all blessed to have known him.
Thank you, Art. I'd like to ask Janet Decker, who is Bill's sister, to come forward.
Good morning. I'm probably the only person here who knew Bill when Bill was Billy. Billy and I are 5.5 years apart, him being older than I. And one of the stories that was told about Billy, before I was born, this won't go on forever. After eating some long digested cereal, he decided that he needed to collect box tops. I guess he was about 4 or 5 box tops because he was a Captain Midnight fan. And always the hero, he sent these things away. I guess his parents sent them. And he got back a magical ring from the Captain Midnight people, the superhero. And he would get this ring, and to everyone that he knew, he would wear the ring and hold it out, and like children and maybe adults do, hoping that that magical laser eye beam would go in a triangle to the other people that he was with, and they would know he had received a rifle, a plastic or probably wooden rifle for Christmas. And he took this rifle to the hospital to guard me. And he did that the whole time, hoping that I could become a useful companion for him. And he was truly my idol, as sometimes younger children are to their older siblings. The one thing I remember, I was probably 4 or 5, and he was required to take me to the movies. Every Saturday afternoon, my mother would give him 2 quarters, I think it was, and he'd have to take me to the movies. And he did this so graciously. This little person, a whole lot younger. And he'd take me down to the theater, we'd walk. We'd go into the movies and be excited with the cartoons and the newsreels. And then I would fling my legs over the seat next to me and fall asleep till the end of some program with the Cisco Kid and Hopalong Cassidy, and I would sleep through the whole movie, and then we'd go home. He'd never say anything. Probably about after the 5th week of this, he said to my mother, "Do I have to take her?" And she said yes. Moving along in time, and I was still not in school yet, and Bill was in a play, and the play was called Bluebird's Messenger of Happiness. And of course, Bill was the bluebird, the hero of Bluebird. And I was sitting there being so little and enthralled with this elementary school performance on a stage in curtains. And the story went on, and the horrible blue jay was having problems with all the other birds. And here from the side curtains emerged the messenger of happiness, which was Bill, Billy, in his orange tights and giant blue sparkling wings flying, singing a song called Bluebird's Messengers of Happiness. Let's see. A couple of years later, which it sounds funny now, but I don't know, I was probably 7 or 8 or something like that. He was 5.5 years older. He was always very generous with me and still my idol. And he decided that he had a paper out, and he saved his money to take me shopping in Philadelphia. So the 2 of us were really pretty small to be traveling around alone, but we went down to Darby, it was close by, and got the trolley car. Went into Philadelphia, we were in Wanamaker's and Gimbel's and Strawbridge and Clothier, and especially Woolworth's, which was where he bought for me some modeling clay and crayons and different colored pencils, and I had a bag of stuff to take home. And so we then, finished our trip, and we got back on the trolley car, and we got about 5 minutes into the trip, and I had a history of motion sickness. And a trolley kind of rocks. The tracks are narrower than the car, and it rocked. And about 5 minutes into it, I said, "Bill, I have to get off the trolley." He said, "You really have to get off the trolley?" "Yep, I think I do." And he said, "Well, I don't have any more money to get us home." We were about 42nd Street and had to go way out past Philadelphia. He said, "Do you really have to get off of here?" I said, "Yeah." And we got off, and he had a nickel left after buying me all these presents. And as soon as I got my feet on solid ground, I felt good again. He said, "Are you okay now?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, we're going to have to start walking because it was really a big distance." But really, he was so gracious, even young like that. He was still my hero because he didn't tell my mother, or he didn't I don't know, when I got to be about 12, he was determined I wasn't supposed to be too stupid. He decided he was going to teach me algebra in the summer, which he did, and it really wasn't necessary. Well, then that was a big deal, knowing algebra. Now it's in 3rd grade, I think. But so he sat for the summer and taught me this subject, so I knew what I was going to be doing. Moving along, 50 years later, I had some operations that were time-consuming and kind of debilitating. And Linda excused Bill to come to my house. The children are already grown and out of the house. And he stayed with me for 3 months. And I needed some night and day care, and he set up a little apartment for himself in the basement. And we had walkie-talkies because I needed some care through the night. And he did that for 3 months, and then I broke a leg badly, and then he did it again a couple of years later and stayed with me. And all I can think of was Billy and his Captain Midnight ring of being a hero. And somewhere I wonder where that sparkling ring is today.
Thank you, Janet. I'd like to ask Kathy Floyd, his niece, Scott Midkind, his nephew, and Matthew Midkind, who is also Matthew, to come forward.
I gotta call Aunt Janet, that's hard. When Aunt Linda asked me if I would get up and talk today about Uncle Bill, I was very honored, and of course I was happy to do so because I loved my Uncle Bill very much. I was very proud to be his niece, and I was very happy to have him as my uncle. I have a lot of really fun memories. I didn't write anything down. I am not prepared. But I had such an awesome childhood growing up with my aunts and uncles and cousins, and he took me to my very first Phillies game and to the Eagles, and he was the fun uncle who would do cannonballs in the pool with us, and he judged countless numbers of cousin talent shows when all the other parents gave up and said no, they were done. Uncle Bill did not. He would continue and judge for us. He took us on the boat and took us to Barnacle Bill's, and I just have such fond memories. He was so smart, and he was such a hard worker, and he taught me the difference between cheap vodka and good vodka. And he helped create my dislike for cats because there was a cat that died once out in the street, and he made me help scoop it up with a rake and a trash bag. And he just always made me laugh, and I loved him so much and miss him.
I too am very honored to be asked by Aunt Linda to speak today. Most of my memories are from my very early years. I'm very well known as the family crier, if it happens to be. But my memories of Uncle Bill, usually ragtagging along with Matt Pater and Joanna down here. He was fair and firm, and one day Matt may have been teasing Joanna at the pool, but he was fair and firm. Matt, he probably was a little more firm at times. But he was that guy. I call him, he was Uncle Bill, and he was kind of it. Like, he was that guy that gave you everything you wanted. Came down and played in the pool, diving contests. He showed up to our wedding, and my wife, Chrissy, tagged him with the other uncles to decorate the tables. And in 1993, they aren't decorations like they are now. You took some paper and you rolled it up, and she gave him a job, and he and the uncles were loud all day. They enjoyed it. But when everything was done and everybody had left, Uncle Bill stayed around, and he made sure with my wife that it was exactly the way she wanted it. That's the guy he was. He came often. When they came to New York with Bob and Lynn, most of you might equate them to Laurel and Hardy. For me, it was more of Waldorf and Statler from the Muppets. And it wasn't because they were angry men, they were funny men. We laughed all the time. And one of the last favorite memory I have is going down to Florida with another couple in my early 20s. We had driven 20 hours straight to Florida. Got there and Uncle Bill had a drink in his hand to hand you. Not a drink a 24-year-old man would usually drink. A Manhattan, boys, it's not a drink. It's nothing. But that was the way he was. He took care of us for the day. He said, why don't you go get a nap? Girls can go lay by the pool. He took off for the butcher shop, came back, and the same thing I heard earlier, taught you how to cook a steak, and a good steak. That same trip, he took my friend and I out in the boat, and he convinced Aunt Linda, I think the night before, the girls can lay by the pool. I'm going to take the guys out on the boat. Got on the boat. Just as we're leaving, and Aunt Linda's yelling, make sure to give them some sunscreen. Uncle Bill tossed it to us, and sunscreen. Well, we're from New York. We don't use sunscreen. I mean, so it was, yep, let's go, Uncle Bill. Well, we came back burnt, and except for a couple of hand marks on your shoulders that kind of look like wings. On that trip, he took us from a couple of marina to marinas, and we'd walk in and we'd have a beverage, and Uncle Bill would go, what do you think about that boat? What do you think about that boat? Well, I think ultimately he convinced Aunt Linda it was a good idea to let us go with him as he was shopping for a new boat. I think he got one soon after. But truly, thank you for the honor to talk about Uncle Bill.
First of all, I need to thank Matt and Joanna for sharing your dad with us. You probably thought it was a revolving door with all the cousins showing up routinely as we did through the years. Aunt Linda was always, very inviting and treated us just as she treated her own. Uncle Bill, he definitely had his own persona, and he was very well spoken. You guys, the same things and the same qualities that you talk about are the same qualities that drew us to him. But the one thing that I did in thinking about it is why would I ever understand, or that made me understand it better, is his relationship with my grandmother. He had the best relationship with my favorite person, and he was always comforting, he was always engaging, he was always discussing whether it was current events, whether it was sports, whatever with Grandma. And it was just, that was Uncle Bill. He was just always there for you. There would be a constant, we alluded to it earlier with the boys, the greasy spoon stops. Uncle Bill's favorite thing. If we were in town, wherever you were traveling, Uncle Bill's going to find a greasy spoon. And which was surprising because Uncle Bill had a discerning taste, in my opinion. And we met in Cape Charles for my son's wedding, and I had the privilege to go several mornings with Uncle Bill to breakfast. And here's a man of this great taste eating Scrabble. And I could never understand it. I'm like, Uncle Bill, what are you eating? And he tried to convince me that it was very, very good. And I'm like, no, I'll eat my bacon. So, but thank you, like I said, we enjoyed our time with Uncle Bill. He taught me the privilege of riding the riding lawnmower. When one of my trips to Holmdel, I was like, really, this is how you can mow your lawn? But he had a particular lawn, and you had to mow it in a particular way. And obviously, everybody knows his lawn was beautiful. So I just definitely enjoyed those times. The trips to Barnacle Bills, like we said, it was nothing for us to come down, and you had to go to the boat out in Red Bank, and afterwards you always went to Barnacle Bills. So it was very enjoyable, and like I said, moments like that. And lastly, I think Aunt Linda knew she was probably putting things out there by asking me to speak that might get. I remember the trip. I was in Florida. And when Uncle Bill retired, he had his own little gang of hooligans that they would meet at somewhere for breakfast in the morning. And he invited me to go with the old retired guys, and I was like, I'm not that old. What am I going to do? But at that time, Uncle Bill had bought another little trinket of his. It was a red Corvette. So of course he said, Scott, you want to go in this? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So we jumped in the Corvette and we drove to the breakfast spot, which I guess they got chased away from a couple breakfast spots that ended up being a Hardee's that they stumbled into that they didn't get kicked out of. So a bunch of guys talking, carrying on like you would expect, and we got done and we got walking back out into the parking lot, and Uncle Bill looked at me and he says, well, you want to drive it back? Well, if anybody knows me, he's like, yes, sir. So I was in the driver's seat of my first Corvette, and we're heading back out, and there's a bridge. I'm not even sure where it was, but there's a bridge that goes back over the water towards Punta Gorda, and Uncle Bill looked at me and goes, well, you going to see what it can do? Well, that was probably not the right thing to ask me. So, as we crested the top of the bridge in triple digits, Uncle Bill looked at me and he goes, well, that's the fastest I've ever been. As we carried down the bridge, but it was always enjoyable, and like I said, when I was a young family in Quantico, it was nothing for us to take a trip from Quantico up to Holmdel, enjoyed a weekend by the pool when I had a 96, and like I said, Uncle Bill, Aunt Linda both helped teach my son to swim in the pool. Yep, and mowed the lawn, obviously I enjoyed that, and I also learned that you can put more than one piece of lunch meat on a sandwich. That was another thing that we learned. So it was like, really? You can do that? But I really enjoyed hearing the stories earlier because it just really brought it full circle. He was definitely a consistent man, and it was a privilege of all of us. And earlier the boys alluded to it. You guys did a good job representing them through Grafton. My own. But thanks for letting us share.
Well, thank you, family and friends, for such storytelling. Our last speaker is actually a former pastor of this church for many years, many beloved years, in particular for Pater family. So he is a longtime friend, but also a pastor, and he will share with you, I think, the fullness of that relationship. And this is Reverend Steve Hicks.
I can imagine you're all going, oh my God, a preacher. How long is this going to be? Thank you for the invitation. There is lunch next door. It's coming. It's coming. No, it's a real honor to be speaking here today. And for Bill, and I just have to say he did have superpowers. I know he did. He was honest, and he was courageous and straightforward. There was no BS about him. He knew what he wanted, and he knew where he was going. And I really admired that about him. And I will certainly take that with me. And I think we all will, who carry those superpowers with us. At church events here, it would always be a pleasure to see him because he was so at ease with himself, so confident, so just having a great time. And we would have picnics at the Liebenau's or the Anticells or the Schumachers, and then there he would be just enjoying himself, which I think you can all really relate to. He asked me if I would celebrate Joanna and Adam's wedding in Washington, D.C., which I was very pleased to do. And I'm glad the glue has stuck. Even though the hubbub blew down in the middle of the service. But that was a wonderful event. And I want to thank Linda and Bill also for, they moved quite a long time ago, And we missed them here at church, but they remained members of this church and continued to worship online and would support the church. And that kind of faithfulness is something I really appreciate. And faithfulness is a word I think of when I think of faithfulness to his family, to his work, to church, to his own vision and direction. Certainly faithful to his teams, his Philly teams and Miami teams. In fact, I have some words to share that Matt wanted me to share, and I also have words from Linda. So, and this is about his leadership in sports. These are Matt's words. He said, I always remember how he made time to be involved when I was growing up, no matter how busy he was with work or other obligations. In particular, I have many memories from him coaching my teams in various sports. One specific memory came from a baseball game when I was around 10. I was pitching and our shortstop made errors on 2 consecutive plays. I turned around and started yelling at him about the errors. The next thing I hear is my dad calling a timeout from the ump. I turn around and he's walking out of the dugout to the mound. He gets there and simply says, "Give me the ball and get your ass in the dugout." No explanation of what I had done wrong was needed, and it was a quick lesson about being a good teammate. Another memory is of him coaching my basketball team around the same age. We were in the playoffs, and the team we were playing had one kid who was significantly taller than everyone else. Their strategy was simple: give the ball to this kid near the basket for layups. Problem for them was that he couldn't shoot from anywhere else on the court, including free throws. So my dad's strategy was to tell everyone on our team to immediately foul this kid as soon as he got the ball. We were not to let him get a single shot off. Needless to say, lots of us fouled out, but he missed every free throw and we won the game. The best part may have been watching the other coach throw a fit to the refs about the strategy being unfair, and my dad just laughing at him. There are situations, however, when I learned to do the opposite of what he did. I was fortunate to be taken to lots of Eagles, Phillies, and Flyers games growing up. Unfortunately, my dad had a habit of always wanting to leave early to, quote, beat the traffic. Usually, I just went along when he said it was time to go, but at the 1983 National League Championship Series, I finally put an end to that habit. The Phillies were playing the Dodgers and were up 3-0 in the series. We went to Game 4 and had great seats behind home plate. The Phillies were up 7-1 after 6 innings, and he said, "Okay, time to beat the traffic." I told him, absolutely not. We are staying to watch the celebration, and we did. The important takeaway for me is the importance of enjoying the time at special events like that, regardless of how long you have to sit in traffic. So thank you, Matt. Wonderful stories. And here are some of Linda's memories that she wanted to share today. As you in the room know, Bill had a great sense of humor. At a family reunion decades ago, the family decided each family should do a skit. Bill did a fabulous version of the Blues Brothers with a blue suit, white socks, and fedora. Bill retired in 1993 and moved to Florida. Bill spent a lot of time on the computer making stock investments. After about 5 years in Florida, he really missed work and all the guys at Merck. He had taken early retirement in 1983. He spent a lot of time on the phone with friends and coworkers up north, and eventually got involved in a couple of small business ventures with an office in Princeton where he could spend a week or so every month. He really, really enjoyed this. In 2006, he became a grandfather twice to Jack and Zach. In 2009, it was Max, and then again in 2010, it was Alex. All boys. He loved them all so much, he became known as Papa, Papa Bear, Pop Pop, Pop Pop, Florida. We would spend a lot of time in California and New Jersey visiting, and eventually everyone was on the East Coast, which made traveling a lot easier. Bill's health began to fail him in 2019. He could no longer drive or travel anywhere. He really treasured all the family visits. Recently, Bill went into the hospital after having to fall and then being in distress. Of course, he didn't want to go. He refused to go. Linda called the doctor and said, "Put him on the phone." Bill listened to the doctor, ordering him to get his behind to the emergency room. Thankfully, he did, because he went into intensive care soon after. He went in, and then 2 hours later, the doctor said they were losing him, and he needed to be on a respirator. Linda agreed, and he stabilized, but Linda was concerned because she and Bill had agreed there would be no extraordinary measures to keep him alive. But her doing this allowed time for Matthew and Joanna to arrive and to be able to be at his bedside. Others called on the phone to say their goodbyes. The family agreed to unplug the respirator because of Bill's wishes, but before that could happen, Bill passed. Linda believes that Bill heard his family talking and wanted to go on his own terms. At his passing, Linda said to Matthew and Joanna, "Daddy's up in heaven with Uncle Bob, enjoying an afternoon drink." After Bill passed, Linda got a call from Bill's lung doctor who wanted Linda to know how much he appreciated Bill. He shared what a good man he was, thoughtful and kind. Yes, thoughtful and kind. Honest and fun to be with. He's left us with this resonance, this reverberation of his presence with us. We carry these rich memories. Now's the time to come to terms with your love and your sorrow, your reflections, your joys, and your regrets. You each have your own journeys to make, your own pathways of remembrance and grief, living without one you dearly loved. You can go this alone, or you can support and care for one another, committing yourselves to help each other, to stay connected in the years ahead. Remember that life can be uncertain and harsh, and we all need the love of each other and of God to help us get through. Bill is still with you with his laughter and his honesty, his caring and courage, his integrity, character, hard work, and calm, with his smile and companionship. Bill has made his way home to be at peace with God, to rest after his accomplishments and his many adventures. It's time to give William A. Pater his release. Allow his soul to rest like a seed laid into the earth that is cracked open to grow to his full potential in God. See in his passing a reason for renewed hope. The candle of his life is blown out because the dawn of his new day has arrived. Well done, Bill Pater, loving husband and father and grandfather. Well done, good and generous friend, skilled coach and fisherman and fan. Well done, kind and generous friend, skilled coach and fan and fisherman. Well done in your career and for the provision of your family. Well done, faithful church member and good man. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Now rest and claim the reward you so richly deserve. Amen.
We have more special music in the garden medley, and it will be sung by Jerry.
Everything has been wonderful that everybody has said about Bill. It's so true. And our friendship goes back so far with Linda. Actually, when we could open our eyes, because our parents were very good friends. And we've been very good friends ever since. We lived in Jersey, we got together. We lived in Florida, we got together. And now back here. And so it's kind of all come full circle. And it's been wonderful, all the things you said about Billy Bob. Ready, Steve? Okay. This is in the garden, and I'm glad it's right now, because that's where we're heading. Wasn't intentional, it's just happening. I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. He speaks sound of his voice is so sweet. The birds hush their singing, and the melody that he spoke to me within my heart is ringing, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. Just a closer walk with thee. Granted, Jesus is my plea. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear, all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. And it's all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Take it to the Lord in prayer.
I'd like to invite us to be in a moment of prayer, the Lord's Prayer. In this congregation, at this moment, we're going to be using debts and debtors, but you're welcome to use the version of the Lord's Prayer that you're most familiar with. Please join me in prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Our final closing hymn is the old rugged cross. over to the Ash Garden. All of you are welcome to join us, and then we will come back into the fellowship hall with family to share a meal together. From what I can tell, Bill would really like and will be with us in fellowship and at our communion dinner. Our loving and eternal God, the one who knows our heart and from whom no secret is hidden, we come before you with all the sorrow and pain that is in our hearts today. For we have loved Bill and we will miss him. We bring our grief, our sense of loss, and also our joy in having known him. We also come before you with a sense